have a story of two exes. One very, very famous ex-husband and an ex as in taxi. Now, why taxi? The story comes from my past experience, my past life as a New York City cab driver. I was a college student and it was a great part-time job. All kinds of great fringe benefits. Grocery shopping, taking friends places, engaging in competitive races with other taxi drivers, cutting off people, nearly causing accidents, and all kinds of other mayhem on New York's wide one-way avenues. You could get lost in Brooklyn, you could get lost in the Bronx. It was a lot of fun. And all of us did it. I had 4 roommates, and we all were part-time cabbies. Every night we would get together and we would talk about our night. Most of the stuff was of absolutely no interest to you. You know how we got here and got there, big deal. But one thing that I think you'd find interesting was that we came into contact with celebrities. At least all the rest of them did, not me. Okay? Hot actresses, porn stars, newscasters. New York City's just full of them. But I never saw anybody. I mean, I just didn't have cabbie zen. Now, one of us came home one night into this room where we sat and talked about it, and he had just picked up Yoko Ono and John Lennon. Man, what was the matter with me? Anyway, it finally happened. At least it almost happened. Lightning struck, well, at least it almost struck. One dreary night, I was bounding up First Avenue, and I made a left turn on 34th Street, and at least 1,000 feet away, I saw him. And there he was, with his arm lifted up like this, as if he was greeting the crowds, cheering the crowds, but he was just looking for me. Who was he? He had this great gray mane. He had a camel's hair coat down to his ankles. He was instantly recognizable. Who was he? Well, I am a time traveler from the mid-20th century. And let me tell you that all during my life there was a goddess of the silver screen. We all know who she was. She slept with presidents. There's a 25-foot high statue of her in Chicago where people line up to be photographed. Marilyn Monroe, right? Anyway, I got closer and closer. I finally realized that I had to say something. I had to talk to this character. This was Joe DiMaggio. Okay? Joe DiMaggio. The guy who was the best ball player for the hated New York Yankees, who was in the World Series 10 times out of 13 years, who hit safely in 56 consecutive games. What was I going to tell him? What were we going to talk about? Would my friends back in the apartment believe me? Would I have to have an autograph to prove it? Anyway, I was going to ask him, this is Valentine's Day, all about Marilyn. How was she? What was she like? As if he would really tell me, right? Well, anyway, I got up there, I pulled up next to him, and for what seemed like an eternity, I sat there and waited, sweating, nauseated, with a dry mouth, not knowing what would happen. The door opened, and in came in 2 very elegantly dressed ladies of a certain age. The door closed behind them. He didn't get in. I turned to them, I said, that was him, wasn't it? And they said, oh yes, that was him. For years, I remained wistful about that night. What would have happened? What would have I learned? What would I have been able to tell? Well, folks, I was extremely lucky. Because years later, I found out that any mention of Marilyn, DiMaggio would get up and leave the room. So if he had gotten in my cab, tonight we would be talking about another ex, an ex-cabbie, and perhaps even somebody else would be up here talking about an ex-human being.